Well, welcome to the podcast. How you doing today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here. I'm going to ask you my favorite question I ask all my guests. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think I've got a couple. One of them was from my parents years ago, and they just said, and you know what? It doesn't cost anything to be kind. It doesn't take any effort to just turn around and pay attention to somebody. That didn't cost anything. And then the other one that I keep receiving since I started my project is just do it. Don't overthink it. Just do it. Jump in.
I think that was a sneaker ad too, if I remember. I love that. That's so cool. I'm always curious with people like yourself. Who are some people in your life who serve as an inspiration for you?
My gosh, there's so many people. I'll use my latest inspiration because of my journey in kindness. It has to be Dr. David Hamilton, and he is a doctor of pharmaceuticals, and he's done a lot of studies on how your body changes in the positive way due to doing sincere acts of kindness. It lowers blood pressure, lowers anxiety, lowers stress, and he has all the scientific data to back that up. But I watch him whenever I get discouraged. I say, no, this is good. This is good. It's helping people more beyond what they even know.
I love that. And what your project is so, I think, important, especially for the times. So could you share a little bit about your journey or what inspired you to become a kindness ambassador?
What inspired me? God put this on my heart, I will tell you that. And it was due to a school shooting down in Florida back in 2018. And I was just told, write this letter. Dear students, grieve with them, sympathize with them, but then remind them there is things they can do. They can sit with that kid that always sits alone at lunch. If somebody is always alone walking in the hall, say, hey, I'll walk with you to your next class. If you know, in school, if you remember, you're always dropping something, books, pencils, whatever it might be, you're always dropping. Help them pick them up. Don't just stand there and laugh. And from there, then it was like, okay, what do I do? I don't know what to do with this. So I set it aside. And about a year later, I picked it back up and decided to do a 21-day kindness challenge on Facebook. And I based it on what a kid sees during their day. So the first people they see is mom and dad, their brothers and sisters. So how can you be nice to them? And that was like day one. And day two was the bus driver, the carpool driver, and just whoever they encountered. So I did that for 21 days and got some speaking engagements from that, went to a few schools. Wonderful. I loved this. This is like the greatest thing ever. So I was having a great time. And then COVID hit. What happened? We all got in front of the computer and on social.
Right.
But what I discovered during that time, I started really reading people's posts, and I found adults are just out and out cruel. I got to thinking, are your kids reading this? And pulled a couple of the great nieces and nephews. They said, oh yeah, we want to make sure mom and dad aren't posting about us. But yeah, we end up reading what they're posting. So if mom and dad are posting nasty things, so the kids looking at that saying, well, if they can do it, I can do it. So I got to thinking, man, I need to talk to the parents. I need to get to the parents on board with this because I can tell kids all day long to be kind, but if they're going to a home environment that is far from that, it's not going to stick.
Right.
Yeah. So that's how I started saying parents have to be the CEOs. They've got to step up to the plate and say, okay, I'm going to set the tone for this family. What do we value?
I love that. So
Yes.
you wrote a book, Raising Kind Kids. How did your personal experience shape the content of that book?
My gosh, I think my kids are now in their 30s, and I think I wish I knew then what I know now, kind of thing. I'll parent, if you've got older kids, you think about that all the time. But I did try to instill to always be kind to, when other kids are pushing and shoving, and I said, let them go ahead. Is that really going to slow you down that much? That kind of stuff in line. Saw it in sports all the time. So yeah, so I just, since that school shooting, I've just started gathering data and doing research and pulling from my own nieces and nephews and their kids. What are you doing? How are you seeing this? And I started compiling that information just because they're inspiring. And I know some of their stories are in the book. The 6-year-old that wants to rake leaves for the sick neighbor, the 20-year-old that's changing someone's tire in the pouring down rain so the person can get going again, and they just happen to be walking by. And there aren't any parents standing over them saying, you've got to do this. They've learned. You've already built the foundation and made kindness is natural breathing. Those kind of kids. I know my own son, I just love this. He was in his 20s. He worked for a restaurant, but they had a banquet hall. And they said, oh, you need to go downtown and work the banquet tonight. And he said, okay. He did such a phenomenal job. They tipped him a significant amount of money. So he had hundreds of dollars on him. And someone approached him and said, do you have any spare change? And he goes, yeah, man. Pulls the money and gives him gives money to this guy. He goes, I was blessed tonight. I'm going to bless you. And I'm thinking, and he's telling me this story. And on one hand, that is so great. I'm so happy you did that. And on the other hand is you are downtown. And you did pulled out a wad of money. Are you crazy? Because it was 1 a.m. It wasn't the middle of the day.
Right. Yeah. Oh my word. I'm curious. You mentioned you did a lot of research for your book. As I did research for my book, I always found some things that surprised me. In your research, what was the most surprising thing you discovered?
How many people are doing studies on kindness?
Really?
Real, I mean, I'm talking, it's not just the universities, and there's a lot of universities doing studies, but it's Mayo Clinic, it's Cedars-Sinai. I mean, these are big hospital systems that are doing it. Psychology Today has written, I don't know how many articles on kindness. So for me, that was probably the biggest revelation is people want this. People are looking for a way to make change in the world. And it's obvious by the amount of studies. There's just hundreds out there. I know part of my studies, everybody laughs about this one. I watched Patch Adams, who was a doctor back in the 60s, I think, who introduced medicine, joy and happiness and being kind into medicine, and that it really did make people better. So yeah, I think the biggest surprise was the amount of research.
So why do you think that is? I mean, I have an idea in my own mind that I think our culture has gotten to the point where it's so polarizing. Is that what you got the sense of, or was there something even deeper?
No, that's what I definitely got the sense of. There's so much unkindness. I'll use that word going on in this world, and people are they want to change. They want things to be better. How can I change the world? And obviously, you can change the world by making kindness as natural as breathing.
I love that. You have a concept I want you to dig deeper into that comes in your book, the idea of CEO of your family. How does that apply to parents?
The parents, through the years, you've gone from helicopter parents to soft parenting to different things. And parents just want to be better. Parents want happy, healthy, kind, compassionate children. At the end of the day, most parents, when you ask, that's what they want. And so they were looking for ways to do that. So they lost my train of thought.
About CEO and parenting.
So when I was doing research and just talking to other young parents, that's what they said. So I thought, okay, parents have to step up, because I also saw where parents they were just letting their kids go. They didn't really care. They don't care what they write on social media. They don't care. They didn't realize their actions meant anything. So, okay, so you have to sit down and think, okay, what tone do I want to set? What values do I want to instill in my children? And then you have to mirror them. And it's just like going back to the social media, when you're writing and posting nasty things, that's the green light for your kids to go, I can do it. So parents have to realize your kids are watching everything you do. And they're
Unfortunately.
reading every post you make. And And I think parents don't always realize that. You know, they're thinking, oh, they're over on their little game and doing their games. They're not paying attention to a thing I'm saying or doing. And like, they've heard every word, whether you think they did or not.
Exactly. So as you think about how do we begin to change this culture in our families, what are some key strategies in your book that parents can use to create a lasting impact on their children's behavior and attitudes?
You should start by being kind to your kids. And I don't mean that. I'm just saying simple things. The sticky notes on the bathroom mirror. You're awesome. You make my day. Those kind of things. They've got the big math test. Everybody stresses about the math test. And so put the note in the backpack. You got this. You know, just those things. So when you send your child out the door, it's on a high note. And that's going to affect everything that happens to them throughout their day. And then the other thing I always like to do is at the end of the day. Now, whether it be over the dinner table, whether it be driving them to every extracurricular activity out there, which I remember this show for years, but I did get the best conversations when we were in the car driving. So I encourage parents, check in with your kids. What's the best thing that happened to them today? What's their least favorite thing that happened today? And then my favorite, what made you laugh? And that kind of gives the parents that check in to see, okay, we might need to talk about this one further. We might need to do that further. Or okay, my kid's okay today. We're good. That kind of thing. And then the other thing for parents, through my research, hugs. Hugs are underestimated, in my opinion. And through research, I found out you need 4 hugs a day just to survive. You need 8 hugs to maintain the status quo, and 12 to thrive and grow. And that can include animal hugs, cat hugs, dog hugs, just so people know.
I love that. In this digital age, parenting is different. So, how do you help modern parents to really kind of grasp what it means to be kind? Because, like you said, in this culture we have now, there's so much social media impact. So, what tips do you have for the challenge that modern parents have about parenting?
I think one of the best things to do is, how do you want to be treated? I have one of my this is somebody that I knew that was retired, and then they went and worked in a parking garage. And he said, loved it. Best job he ever had. He loves it. And he went on vacation for 2 weeks and came back. And the people said, we missed your smile. Our day just was never the same. Your smile and your good morning made my day. I've had the worst 2 weeks in the longest time. And the guy looked at me. He was so funny. And he said, you kindness lady, you always told me that kindness meant something. And he said, but I didn't realize what you meant until someone told me just my smile and my good morning made their morning and made their days go better. And that's what parents have to, in this day and age, it's that simple. Keep it simple. I'm not trying to pile something on to their already busy plate, but he had no idea. And I don't think anyone else. I said, until you start to do it, you don't realize the impact you can have. And that's what I want parents to realize. It doesn't have to be hard, doesn't have to be complicated. Just a smile and a good morning goes a long, long way.
Wow. So, you've been doing this for a while. What are some success stories of maybe a family that maybe implemented what you're doing and you love telling that story?
One of the success stories, I had just posted a video today on delivery people, because this time of year, we're all ordering online for the holidays and you're getting an influx of all these deliveries. So I said, why don't you be nice to the delivery guy, put out the small bottle of water and, the snack bags of chips. And I know last year I caught a delivery guy out there and he said, oh my gosh, I was starving and I don't have time to stop and get lunch or have lunch. And he said, this is great. But somebody else then today, after my post, said, you know what? We always put a thank you note in the mailbox for the mailman. And I thought that's a great idea to do too. And then somebody else came and said, we try to catch the garbage collectors at least once a month. and run out and literally run out to them down to the street and with snacks and drinks for them. So, I gave an idea and I'm just kind of giving you a framework, but see other people take those ideas and expand on them. And I think that's wonderful. And
That is
again,
great.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I said, again, it's something simple.
I love that. So, in your book, you talk about creating an atmosphere of fun and happy moments. I was listening to a book by Breanna Brown, and she talked about how we don't really know how to play, and we have to struggle to it's not always our natural fallback point. So, give us some examples of activities for people who don't know how to have fun uh, and create happy moments that they could maybe model in their own life and family.
Well, this is my favorite thing to do with kids because a lot of times when you're trying to be kind and when someone's coming at you, your actual natural reaction is to react to that. One of the things I teach in strategies is to take a pause and stop and take a breath. Well, a fun thing to do with your kids to teach your children how to take a pause is blowing bubbles, because you have to take a deep breath and let it out. And it's bubbles, it's fun. And kids, yeah, you can do that anywhere and they have a great time with it. So that's just something fun to do. One thing I did, I had my great nieces and nephews out and we were in the park and we were playing around and just doing all the park things, all the things. And I'm just looking around going, people have missed the trash can by a mile. So I said, okay, guys, I ran to the car. I had some empty grocery bags. I said, everybody, whoever gets the most trash wins. And they went, who knew picking up trash could be fun? But you make a game out of it. And we helped keep the park clean at the same time. And they had a ball. And I made everybody one. So we all went and got a treat.
I love that. So, what reaction are you getting back to your book? Are people responding? Are they thanking you? What's just kind of overall feedback you're getting?
Yeah, no, it's all positive. I had one person that just said, well, I've heard it all before. What are we going to do? And I'm like, lessons need to be repeated. And clearly, you're not practicing it. And there's other people not practicing it. So that was probably my one negative comment. And I'm not saying it's all new. I'm just putting out the framework, putting it back out there in a simple, easy process for busy parents to follow. But most of it's been busy. Like, gosh, I never even thought of that. And they take the framework and then you tweak it so it works into your family and your life. And most people have just taken it and kind of run with it. And when I can tell another story of one of my great nephews, they are my inspiration. I'll just use a lot of their stories. Here he is, junior high, and he sees this kid in a wheelchair who can't push his wheelchair and carry his cafeteria tray at the same time. And so he said, hey, I'll carry it for you. They do. He sits down with him and his friends, and my nephew is an athlete, and most of his friends are too. Come to find out, the kid in the wheelchair knew every sports statistic known to man. And these kids were friends all through junior high. Now they've gone off to different high schools, but they were very close friends all that time. So again, it's those kind of things that happen. Another one, something people need to understand is, personal pain is as unique as a fingerprint. You never know what somebody's going through. So always be kind. And I learned this lesson when I was at a restaurant. And this woman, we got seated, got our menus, and then the server took forever to get up there. But she comes up and she, you won't believe it. No one does, but this really happened. What do you want? And we're like, we had a couple questions. I don't know. I was just told to come over here and take your order. What do you want? Like, okay. So we ordered, we got what we ordered. It was fine. She never came back to fill coffee or anything. She comes by, literally, I'm not exaggerating. She almost threw the bill on the table and stomped away. And we're looking at each other. And we had a decision to make. Do we call the manager or not? What are we going to do? So we decided against calling the manager. We tipped her normal. We didn't ding her on the tip or anything. We tipped her a normal tip. And then I wrote on the receipt, you were designed to shine, and put a smiley face. We gathered up our stuff. We walked out. Do you know, she chased us out into the parking lot and said, thank you. I needed to hear that.
Wow.
Turns around and runs back in the restaurant. Now, I made a decision, and this is what I'm trying to get other people to do. We could have called the manager over. We could have. We had every right to do that. But what was more important? Was it more important that we were right or to be kind to her? And being kind to her changed her entire day and probably all the customers that came after us. So those are just the kind of things that people need to take that pause and think about.
You know, it was so fun. I had one of my other podcast guests, and she mentioned the fact that what her goal is in life is to sparkle Jesus everywhere she goes.
I love that.
And it just kind of sounds like that's what you did by not giving her back what she was giving to you, but instead sparkling a little bit of Jesus and your kindness and appreciation and empathy for her. You changed her day. And it's amazing what you just talked about, how kindness can really truly impact people in ways we cannot possibly imagine.
Yeah, and just feeding off of that kindness, when you're performing acts of kindness with someone, you're also opening that door to opportunities to introduce Jesus into their
Right.
lives.
Exactly. Right. It's a wonderful gift we have as Christians to be able to do that maybe others don't.
Yeah, yeah, and it's wonderful. I got another fun story. One of the reactions, I did have one negative reaction that goes back to the 21-day kindness challenge I did. I said, there's no room in your journey in kindness for road rage. I have more reactions from that than anything else. And it's because they didn't want to be kind. They wanted to rage on the road. But he cut me off, and that idiot. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So what happened to me, I'm getting off an exit ramp, and to this day, have no idea what I did. I don't know. And this guy stops in front of me, waiting for the light to change on the exit ramp. And he's out of his car, waving his arms, yelling at me. And I'm like, gosh, what am I going to do? Lock the doors, roll up the window. I don't know what this guy's doing. So I go back to Patch Adams, and I had bought the red clown nose. And it was sitting in my console, and I'm like, well, now I know what I'm going to do with this thing. I put it on and then just waved at the guy through the windshield. He couldn't have stopped faster. To this day, I wonder what he told people when he got to his destination about the crazy lady with the crown nose. So, with road rage, 9 times out of 10, they don't know what they did. And you've got kids in the back seat, probably the teenager who's going to be driving in a couple years sitting next to you. So no, don't put the stop on your horn, because I loved my horn and I did do that. And so to stop me from blowing my horn all the time at people, and know that whatever's coming out of your mouth, colorful language, colorful hand signals, the kids that are in your car are seeing that. And then have some fun. Have some fun with it. You want to teach kids, you can do this when they're arguing and, they're yelling and screaming at each other. So just get between them and just say, and then if it's my kids, they're going, oh, she's at it again. Just ways to have fun and throw some humor into it. So anyway.
That is so cool. So, what do you hope the long term effects of your book are on families and communities?
I want to change the world. Bottom line. And you, I'm sure, know as well, we've all been watching the news, and the thing with kindness is there is, I told you about all the studies that are being done. Well, one of them is if you and I exchange an act of kindness, your serotonin levels go up, and so do mine. Well, serotonin is your happy hormones. Some of the studies say oxytocin, but they're all happy hormones. It doesn't matter. So from one act of kindness, you and I are happy. Well, what I just think the most fascinating thing is anybody that watched that exchange, that act of kindness, their serotonin levels also go up. So one act of kindness, we have created a ripple of happy people in this room. And my goal would be that just focus on your corner of the world. We don't have to change everybody, but just your neighborhood, just your street, and create that ripple of kindness. And then if we're all doing that, all those ripples are being created, that they're going to merge together and create a wave of kindness that washes across the country.
I love that. So here's my other favorite question I love to ask my guests. What do you want your legacy to be?
That I actually reached parents, and not just parents, anybody, that they realize that they become aware of what they're doing and making intentional acts of kindness. And it doesn't have to be anything huge, just one or two things here and there make a huge, huge difference. But I want people to know that kindness opens the door to share your faith. Kindness opens the door to have realistic conversations, level conversations. That kindness opens many doors and can truly change the world if we all put it together.
Wow. So as you wrap up this amazing conversation, is there anything I haven't asked you that I should have asked you?
I don't know, Keith, you've asked a lot. We've hit it up. We've hit a lot. I've talked to you about personal pain. This is another thing, especially I think in today's environment, that we should talk about is that, and it's a W.C. Fields quote, and I really, it hit me hard one day. And basically he says, just because you're invited to an argument doesn't mean you have to attend.
I love that.
Yeah, it is. And if you think about it in this environment today, that goes a long way. And it goes also back to do I have to be right or do you want to be kind?
Right.
So yeah, that's the big thing. And I do want, Keith, I do got something I would like to share with your listeners too. It's a
Cool.
free
What's that?
It's a free checklist of 75 ways to be kind. So if you're stuck, you're like, well, I don't know what she's talking about. I don't know where to start. This checklist gives them a place to start. And then just make a
Awesome.
game of it. How fast can you go through all 75? Or, or look at it and say, yeah, this is good, but I'm going to tweak it to work it for our family.
So how's the audience get access to that?
Yeah, we'll post a link below and it'll lead you right to the checklist.
All right. Thanks so much. I'm sure the audience could benefit from more kindness. Our world can benefit from more kindness. Where can listeners find your book, Raising Kind Children, and
That
connect
can
with
be
you on your
found on
latest project?
Amazon. Yeah, that can be found on Amazon, and there's also a journal that goes with that they can also purchase, so they can keep track of all their acts of kindness.
Well, that's great. So one more time, as we wrap this up, and this was a great conversation, what key takeaways you want to leave with the audience?
I think the key takeaways are, everybody's pain is as unique as a fingerprint, so always be kind. And are you right? Do you need to be right? Or do you want to be kind?
I love that. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on. And I feel just kinder having talked to you today. So it's a pleasure just
Good, thank
have
you.
it having this discussion today. Blessings on the work that you're doing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you for having me on. I do appreciate that.
Thank you.